Hello, everyone. We're getting into week number 5, which is hard to believe. We're now past the halfway point in the semester. I hope everything is going well with you. I'm still trying to get over a cold, so I sound a little bit froggy, and sorry about that, but I'm doing the best I can. Hope you had a good week. Don't know if you watched the Super Bowl. I did not. I root for the Panthers, and so my team wasn't even in the Super Bowl. So anyway, maybe you were up late last night. So I decided to go ahead and put my announcements in this morning because I figured you wouldn't be even looking at the computer last night anyway. Let's do a quick review of last week. You learned about metabolism, which is all the chemical reactions that happen in cells and organisms, and it involves breaking down food to make energy and the subunits of molecules that you need to build your own molecules, no matter what kind of organism you are. And that process, of course, is terribly important, and it's divided into aerobic and anaerobic processes. Only organisms that are very tiny can be anaerobic, growing without oxygen, because you just can't get very big if you don't use oxygen in your catabolism. So that means that we, as huge organisms with trillions of cells, are aerobic. You also learned about photosynthesis and how sunlight energy is converted into glucose for those organisms that do photosynthesis, and that includes plants, of course, but also some of the protists like algae. So that was last week. This week we're getting into DNA and genetics. Yay! It's my favorite. Wait a minute. One of my favorites. I can't say my favorite. You need to read 3 chapters the 3 chapters have to do with DNA and genetics. Chapter 10 is all about cell division, and part of that chapter is really important, especially the cell cycle. And one thing that I think is missing from that is that cells don't continue around that cell cycle on and on and on, because that's not really the job of a cell, just to divide and divide and divide. The job of a cell is to do what? Its job. So if you're a skin cell, you're there to protect. If you're a heart cell, you're there to help cause a beat. If you're a blood cell, red blood cell, you're there to transport oxygen. So you have a job to do. And one thing that I think was missing out of that little diagram was that cells do stop in the cell cycle in what we call G0 phase. And that is where the cell actually stops cell division, and it does the job that it has to do. And that's important because in cancer cells never reach G0. They do just keep dividing and dividing and dividing. And one of your questions this week has to do with cancer. So that part is very important. Chapters 14 and 15 are describing how DNA works, how DNA replication works. It happens in the S phase of the cell cycle, the synthesis stage. And the chapter also explains to you that proofreading happens, which is terribly important. When you make new DNA, you want it as pristine as possible. And so it needs to be proofread when it's produced, and it is proofread. And then chapter 15 talks about how DNA is used to make all of the proteins that the cell needs, and most of those proteins are enzymes, which do what? This links back to that metabolism. They run all those chemical reactions in cells. One section in, I think it's chapter 14, talks about DNA fingerprinting or profiling, and the first case of it. Dr. Alec Jeffries was studying genetics in England, and the first case of DNA fingerprinting was an immigration case. teenage boy was trying to come into the country, and he said that his mother and siblings were already in the country. And Dr. Jeffries actually did DNA profiling or fingerprinting in this boy's case to show that he actually was the woman's son. So that's interesting. Also interesting is the fact that the first forensic science DNA fingerprinting case actually resulted in showing someone's innocence. So the first time it was used in a crime, in the solution of a crime, a person who confessed to murdering someone was actually exonerated because his DNA did not match the DNA from the crime scene. So that's also very interesting. Of course, everybody knows now how important DNA fingerprinting is in the solution of lots and lots of crimes. Read through the Module 5 overview. The overview is very good. And also watch the videos. I had a little trouble with a couple of the videos because I had to approve the use of Adobe Flash Player, and I don't know if you might have trouble with that, especially if you're using your phone. So I'm not sure. You may have a little bit of trouble with a couple of those videos from Nature Education, but they are really good videos. The graphics are awesome. Okay, then we get into discussion board postings this week. The first question concerns whether you would consider cancer mitosis disease, and really this means cell division. Is this a cell division disease? Is it a disease where there's a problem with cell division? Okay, think of it that way. Versus a genetic disease. So does it have something to do with genes and cells that go wrong? Or is it both? And I bet you can guess that it's most likely both. So anyway, your initial post is about that. Don't forget in your response posts to include the second part of the discussion board postings requirements, and that is to look up 2 environmental carcinogens, and carcinogens are anything that cause cancer cells to become cancer cells. So look up a couple of those and suggest ways that you might be able to remove these from the environment. So that will be interesting to read about because there are lots of these. And then you also have milestone 3 of your final project, and this is all about solutions to this problem that you have been researching so far, ethical considerations, which are of course terribly important because sometimes the ethical considerations mean that we don't have a solution to a problem because sometimes the solution is worse than the problem itself. So take a look at those, the ethical considerations, and you'll be writing about those. And the positive and negative aspects of the issue. In that first week's posting, you had to tell what are the benefits of this particular issue and who benefits from this issue, because otherwise there wouldn't be an issue if there were no benefits. So you're going to get back into positive and negative aspects of the issue. I want you to remember to include citations in your work. If you got the information from a source, make sure that you have the citation in the body of the paper. And include references. I suggest that you have at least 3 references. No instructor wants to see Wikipedia references. No instructor on the planet wants to see Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is an open source and anybody can add to it. So it's not reviewed. You don't know if it's true or not. So watch out for that. And use good references, good resources that you know are going to be true. Okay? And if you need any help with that, always email me and ask me. I'll be glad to tell you. If you need suggestions of resources, I'll be glad to help you with that. You also have the library for SNHU, so use that, use those resources. But I am here to help you. So if you need guidance, just ask. As always, I am here for you. So let me know. I love to hear your questions. So ask me something. All right. I hope you have a good week. As always, there's my email address up there at the top, right there. Nope, other way. There. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good week.